I want to talk about fear. Fear is one of the greatest thieves, a thief of dreams, destroyer of peace and tranquility. It's one of the things that just really wrecks our life, more or less, depending on how we live in it. Now, I want to talk about the chemistry of fear, and then I want to talk about what it does and how to get rid of it. Because remember, my commitment in this road to 50 million is to do everything I can to help 50 million people discover their gifts and choose to serve with them. And I keep saying that, and that may sound like nothing to you, but if you discover your gifts, you have power. You have power to serve, you have power to create wealth, and you have power to make a difference. You, right here, right now. So I don't care where you've been or where you are right now. If you look and find those things you love to do and you are best at or good at, you can serve. When you can serve, you can create money if you want to, and money and impact. So you can create income, cash, money, and impact. You can make a difference in the world, and you can make a living. So I don't know. Everybody that talks to me wants to make a difference, and they also want to make a living doing it. Well, that's more possible today than it's ever been, and yet people are stuck. Droves and droves and droves. And why are they stuck? They're stuck because of fear. Now let's talk about the fears, and then we'll talk about the chemistry. Fear, nobody can see it. You don't open a cupboard and see a can of fear. You don't pour a cup, and there it is, a cup of fear. It's, I don't know, some awful shade of gray-black, right? And like some, movie on TV where there's this black substance and then this awful hand or head or something comes up out of it. Saw an old episode of The Flash the other day where some guy was a meta-human and was Tar Man or something and, lived in asphalt and came up out of that and was all black and, all right? That's what fear feels like. We know what the effects are. Fear keeps you paralyzed. It keeps you making excuses and reasons why right now is a bad time to do whatever. Well, I use this fiery bird behind me. I don't know if that's an eagle. Yeah, it's an eagle. So I have many of these that have a phoenix in them and an eagle with fire and growth. And the reason that I do is because you have that power. When you feel like that, nothing stops you. You march forward and you create things. Well, you know what? That feeling is chemistry too, just like fear. And fear can be just as powerful as that chemistry also. So both of those chemistry content in your bloodstream have tremendous power. If you watch the LA Talk Radio interview, and if you're not watching those LA Talk Radio interviews, you're missing out. You're missing out. Go back and find the LA Talk Radio show with Chris Dorris, which was a couple of weeks ago. And that show, he talked about these very emotional states, the chemistry that's in our bloodstream that comes from what we think and what we believe. And he gave an example there about imagining having, 10 million or some other large number in your bank account. And just to imagine taking your bank account or calling it up online and seeing that imagination, if you imagine it well at all, creates chemistry. You get excited and you feel stuff, right? And the point that he was making is that you and I have access to every emotional state. And here's how. If you believe something, your body complies and produces the chemicals consistent with that belief. So if you believe you're in mortal danger, it produces adrenaline, cortisol, and things that allow you to do something. If you believe you have this huge amount of money, it creates chemistry consistent with that. If you believe, now I'm not a lottery player, but maybe you are, and if you believed with all your heart and they read the numbers and you believed that you'd won, that would create chemistry in you. Whether you won or not, if there was a mistake and you found out later, that disappointment would also create chemistry. Now, the chemistry in our bodies is what moves us to action. There's a corresponding but different chemistry in the soul or the spirit. The feelings that we have that motivate us and cause us to do sometimes nearly impossible or impossible things to create stuff. So the chemistry of fear is a combination of neurotransmitters. Adrenaline, cortisol's the stress one, and I don't know the names of all of them. I know there's norepinephrine, and I know there's serotonin and dopamine and anandamide. Anandamide is a fun one. It's, I think, the most recently discovered one, and it's called the bliss molecule. And you want to have anandamide in your system, raw cocoa powder is the very best source of it. That's why I was editing one of the Creatives Save the World episodes, which is on Traverse TV. And if you're not watching those, you're missing out, because the gal on that I interviewed, the series is called Creative Save the World. So if you want to find that, it's on watch.traversetv.com. Traverse is spelled Traverse. So watch.traversetv.com and find the show under Your Ultimate Life or Creatives Save the World. Anyway, the episode that she did was fabulous. She's a healer, sound healer, and she has crystal bowls and interesting instruments, and they do all kinds of stuff. And she said many of the ceremonies they start with a cocoa ceremony with raw cocoa. And there's a reason. You know, there's some caffeine in cocoa, which pumps your heart up, but the most effective thing in raw cocoa is anandamide. It's a source of anandamide, which is a neurotransmitter that makes you feel powerful, happy, blissful, good. So there's a little tip for you. If you don't know the benefits of raw cocoa, it has some powerful benefits, and that's not the only one. There's a host of stuff, and I'm not an expert, but I do use it in my shakes every day, and I love it. Anyway, fear is the opposite. The specific collection of neurotransmitters associated with fear paralyzes you. You know the effects. You go up on stage to speak, and all of a sudden you forget everything you were going to say. You go up on stage to speak, and all of a sudden you might remember what you're going to say, but you feel stupid and clumsy, and your tongue gets thick, and you don't know what you're saying, and all of a sudden, whatever, right? Or if you're going to sing, or if you're going to be on a panel, or if you're going to make a video like this, all of a sudden, all that stuff happens to you, and it's not a mystery. The universe isn't conspiring against you. Here's what actually happens. You believe you can't do this. You believe I will forget, I'm going to screw up, I'll mess up, people will laugh at me, they'll throw things at me either actually or virtually, they'll turn me off, they'll dismiss me as irrelevant. Believing those thoughts creates corresponding chemistry. I want you to think about how powerful that is, because believing opposite thoughts, which is people are going to love this, they're going to just be crawling all over themselves to hear this. They're going to be gobbling every word. It's going to change their lives in value and what it provides for them. That also produces chemistry. And that happens if you're sitting in front of a camera just recording and there's not a single soul either on the other end because you're not doing it live or you're not in the room. So think about that for a minute. If you can have that total meltdown fear experience or the total excitement success experience in front of a camera with nobody watching, think about what that means. It means, and I'm sure you know this already, you can create excitement and power and communicate it in videos that you record, in emails and messages that you write, in conversations and with people whenever you talk to them. You literally have the ability to create your emotional state. Now, on Chris's episode on LA Talk Radio, he says, create the state, don't wait. And that's one of his 52 mental toughness mantras, and I love that book. And you'll hear all about it on the LA Talk Radio episode. But create the state, don't wait. And he and I also, I'm teaching you how to create the state. Examine what you're believing. And if the things you're believing in your heart of hearts, because they're the ones with power, what you say I'm powerful, da-da-da, saying a bunch of affirmations that you don't believe and hope that somehow saying them enough is going to talk you out of what you truly believe. That doesn't work. You have to go to work on what you really believe in your heart of hearts. That is the place that instantly and powerfully creates the state of victory, the state of defeat, before you ever go on stage, go to battle, go into conversation, or go to do anything. So the chemistry of fear follows from your belief. So if you believe something fearful or failure-oriented, it will create that chemistry, and that chemistry will freeze your muscles, blank your mind, and mess up the whole show. And you know that because you've experienced it. So then the question is, fine, I get that, Kellan, thanks very much, but how do I fix that? Well, the answer is to learn to live without fear. So I've got this little note here on the page, live without fear, right? You think that's impossible. No, it's not. When you were born, you didn't know to think all these things, right? You learned that. You learned it from what I call your be deep, beliefs, definitions, experiences, expectations, and perceptions. That acronym spells be deep. Your be deep forms a straitjacket. I call it your context straitjacket. Now, you know what a context is, right? It's the surrounding stuff that gives meaning to stuff. You hear people say, well, you took that out of context. The context is what gives real meaning. So if you have a context straitjacket that says, I'm going to fail, I'm going to suck, it's not going to work, then you're going to create that. But you created the context straitjacket. Or your past beliefs, definitions, experiences, expectations, and perceptions created it, and you allow them to stay. Whatever that event was in the past, it happened. I'm not pretending it away, but it was back there. It's not now. If it were true that it were always true, then that means a football player, or a basketball player, or a hockey player, or a dancer, or a singer, if they missed a step or a note or an opportunity some time ago, that would mean that forever they're going to miss that. And we all know that's not true. People practice, they change, they do better, they learn things. And guess what? And the next time they don't. So the idea that because you failed, or because someone criticized you, or because whatever it was that happened that gave you this negative feeling happened 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 times in the past, that doesn't mean anything except that happened 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 times. That's all it means. It does not under any circumstances mean it's going to happen, even the very next time, right now, or the next 100 times, or that it'll ever happen again. It doesn't mean that. It only means that when we allow it, when we choose to live inside this context straitjacket. So I have 2 things that can help you eliminate fear. 2 books. The first of the 2 things is 2 books. So I have 2 things that will help you eliminate it. And the first one is 2 books. One's called The Book of Context, which is an exploration about this context idea, where you got your context, and how to change it. It's not permanent, and it's not made out of cement. It's flexible, and it's transparent. The second book is Live Without Fear. I wrote that from my own experience and learned to live without fear from that experience. So I wrote those 2 books to help. I wrote those 2 books to offer insights and things that I learned as I discovered, examined, and then changed my context, and as also I learned to live without fear. So that's one thing, is I have a couple of books. They're on Amazon if they interest you. The other thing that I have is this offer. And the offer is, I'm committed this year to help 50 million people live without fear, discover their divine gifts, make a difference in the world, create income and impact, create cash, make a difference, raise up and do the thing you were meant to do. I had a fabulous conversation yesterday with a woman that was in Russia. She's a doctor, in fact, a specialty, a neurosurgeon. And she talked about how much of a struggle life was for her. And we talked a little bit about the war and stuff like that. And but mostly we talked about her, and she wants to do something else. Turns out neurosurgeons don't get paid very well. Neurologist, she doesn't get paid that well. And I was aghast because here in Canada or in the U.S., they would get paid a lot. But anyway, that isn't even the issue. The issue is her heart wants to do something else. Those yearnings, and the reason I tell you that story is because people are the same everywhere. Those yearnings are the divine nudges, the divine pushes, the divine invitations to discover your gifts. Now, you may be doing something else already like she is. So transitioning to doing and serving with your divine gifts could be a slow process. It can be a fast process. You can do it in addition to some job that you have. You're not required to somehow turn it into a business. But every one of those opportunities exists for you right here, right now. So now that and that's the second thing, I'm offering help to change your context, to learn to live without fear, to create the impact, make the difference you want in the world. So if you don't do that, you're free to stay right where you are. If you're happy where you are, then you should. If you feel stuck and you feel that yearning, then staying there is your choice. So you have this invitation. There's a couple of books, and I'm offering help. My commitment is to help 50 million people to discover their gifts and to make the choice to serve with them. So you can make the difference, to create the impact, create income, a business and cash, make a living if you want to, from that business, from that gift. There is no better time. Right now is the best time that I've ever seen in my 67 years to make that happen. This is your invitation. I know you're a divine person with infinite creative potential. How do I know that? Because we all came from the same place. You have gifts, so do I. You can choose to use yours. I'm offering help. I encourage you, whether you take my help or not, to give in to your nudges, to live to the truth of your capability, and to create your ultimate life. I'll see you tomorrow on the road to 50 million.